Okay, so today we are taking the second protective meditation, which is the meditation on loving kindness. The word that's translated loving kindness in Pali, it's metta. And the word metta, it's derived from another word, metta. Metta means friend. And so metta might be translated very literally as friendliness, but I don't like it as a translation because friendliness suggests just, chumminess. You have a very, cheerful, friendly personality. And yet people with friendly personalities can often nurture a lot of ill will and vindictiveness within themselves. So I'd prefer to translate metta by these compound word, loving kindness, which I think captures the quality. First, loving conveys the inward quality of metta, that it's a deep, heartfelt concern for the well-being and happiness of all beings, oneself and others. And then it's kindness in that this inner feeling of love expresses itself, manifests itself in kindness towards others in thought, word, and action. And so I say that loving kindness involves a heartfelt concern for the well-being and happiness of all beings. And when I say well-being and happiness, these two words also have to be taken in conjunction. So if we think that maybe love should generate the wish for the happiness of others, but happiness in itself is insufficient, because I can wish for well-being, for beings to be happy, to go to parties together, to go out on drinking bouts together, to join, if you see a crowd at a rock concert or at a football game, when their team wins, then they're ecstatic, happy, full of happiness. But the happiness has to be balanced by and complemented by well-being, by true well-being. And well-being implies, I would say, the wholesome development of the mind, the development of wholesome qualities in the mind, particularly those qualities which eliminate or at least counter the causes of suffering and which promote the achievement of the ultimate good, which for Buddhism is the attainment of enlightenment and nibbana. Okay, so metta, loving kindness, is the heartfelt concern for the well-being and happiness of others. And this is a quality which is not confined to meditation. In fact, there are some suttas where the Buddha speaks about how one expresses loving kindness through bodily action, through speech, and through thoughts. But the way we intensify the development of loving kindness and establish it as a strong disposition of the mind is through the practice of loving kindness as a method of meditation. It's a method of meditation that uses various functions of the mind, that uses the power of thought, the power of imagination, the capacity even for visualization, in order to awaken this heartfelt concern for the well-being and happiness of others, to awaken it, to strengthen it, to fortify it, and to enable it to flourish, to flower, to become a powerful force within the mind. And so in the case of the Buddha, his capacity of loving kindness was so strong that sometimes when enemies would come to refute him in arguments, or even some assassins were sent to assassinate him, just by generating loving kindness, he was able to win over his adversaries and turn them into devoted disciples. And even one time his arch enemy, Devadatta, released an elephant, a wild elephant, at the Buddha. And the elephant came running straight towards the Buddha, and all of the other monks fled and deserted the Buddha, and the Buddha was alone on the road with the elephant coming running, dashing towards him. Then the Buddha generated that loving kindness towards the elephant and sent the beams or radiance of his loving kindness towards the elephant. And then as the elephant came within the orb of his loving kindness, the elephant bowed down and venerated the Buddha. And so this might seem fantastic, but I think this is true, that when one develops very strong power of loving kindness, it has a kind of magnetic effect which will transform people. Even when you come into a room, if you have strongly developed loving kindness, people even unconsciously will pick up on your vibrations and will feel, that this is a nice person, a good person. Okay, but we have to begin by developing loving kindness methodically, systematically, gradually. You know, it's great to think about the powers and the functions of loving kindness when it's fully developed, but we have to start ourselves a little bit like starting a fire in a fireplace, you know, with just a flame, lighting some pieces of paper and fanning it until that flame of loving kindness spreads to the twigs and then to the logs, until one has a strong fire of loving kindness burning in the heart. And so it's a matter, at the beginning, it's somewhat difficult. It requires effort, attention, mindfulness. But through repeated cultivation, it becomes a more natural disposition of the mind until it becomes gradually easier to cultivate. Okay, now the question is, how does one cultivate loving kindness methodically? And the teachers within the Theravada tradition have developed, well, actually this method is shared, it's not only unique to the Theravada tradition, but it seems to have developed even before the division of Buddhism into schools, because one finds variation of the same method in the other schools of Buddhism. But there's a systematic method which has been developed by the early Buddhist teachers, by which we can train the mind to give rise to this quality of loving kindness, and then to successively strengthen it and to be able to spread it to wider and wider circles. And in a course, like an extended retreat on the meditation of loving kindness, a teacher will introduce the stages of this method. Well, he'll introduce this method in stages over several days. Say if it's a week-long retreat, he'll introduce each stage, after one works with the earliest stages for a few days, But in this one-day program, I'm going to try to compress the broad outline of the whole method into one day. Okay, the basic method uses two components, what I call the formula and the recipients. And so the method succeeds or operates through the intersection of these two facets, these two aspects of the practice. The formula is a simple verbal formula that one generates or applies in the mind in order to arouse this concern for the well-being and happiness of others. There are numerous variations on the formula, but I'm going to teach the particular phrases that I found most congenial to myself. Okay, so these are, I use a 4-phrase formula. And I'll use the symbol X to represent the person that one is generating loving kindness towards. So we have, may X be well. So the first aspect is being well, by which I would understand being healthy, because being healthy is a prerequisite for any kind of happiness. So if one is ill and sick and afflicted, then it's very difficult to really be vibrant, dynamic, and happy. Okay, so may X be well in the sense of be healthy. The second, may X be happy. So happy is the mental state, the state, maybe it doesn't need explanation, but a state of being joyous, buoyant, inwardly peaceful and happy. Okay, the third I find very particularly poignant in these times. May X be safe. Because now there are so many dangers out in the world, especially when one reads so often about like suicide bombers setting off their bombs at airports, or gunmen coming into a bar, shooting down people. And so I always think that those people who are killed in these terrible incidents, these tragedies, they could have just with a flip of the coin, the flip of the switch, they could have been my own relatives and friends. And so I always want everybody to be safe, to be free from all danger and adversity. So that is the third aspect. And the fourth aspect, may all of X's good purposes be fulfilled. So when people engage in various wholesome activities, one wants them to achieve success and fulfillment through those activities. Okay, so this is the formula. To repeat it, may X be well, in other words, healthy. May X be happy, joyful, buoyant, uplifted, elated in mind. May X be safe, free from all danger. May all of X's good purposes be fulfilled. So this is the formula, and I said that there are two aspects to the practice. So there's the formula and the recipients. The recipients are the people to whom one directs loving kindness. The ideal, sort of at the consummation of the practice, is to be able to generate and to radiate loving kindness to all sentient beings, to all living beings. And when I first, many years ago, started to practice loving kindness, I looked at the systematic way it was explained in the meditation manuals, and I thought, I'm a person of high spiritual development. I don't need that step-by-step method. I can begin at once by generating loving kindness towards all beings. And so I would sit and think, oh, may all beings be well, may all beings be happy, may all beings be well, may all beings be happy. And for a few minutes, maybe 10 minutes, I felt really uplifted. But then it got, who are these beings? And why should I be wishing them to be happy? And then I realized that the teachers of the meditation manuals had the strategy in mind for a purpose, that they understood human psychology very, very well. And they knew how we have to proceed step by step before we can reach that point of extending boundless loving kindness. Okay, so we choose certain or select certain persons, and these persons come into categories. Okay, so the first is oneself, that one has to develop loving kindness towards oneself. And this is not developing what I would call egotistic loving kindness. It's not the wish, may I be number one, may I be the one who wins all the praise from others, may I be the most successful in my work. But the objective is, the way I understand it, is to see that at the base of one's own being, sort of underlying all of our activities, is a deep wish for one's own well-being and happiness. And this enables oneself to use oneself as the criterion for generating loving kindness to others. Because when we generate loving kindness to others, it's based on an implicit understanding that for each and every human being, and even each and every living being, the fundamental drive at the base of their own being is the wish to be well and happy. And so if I can see that I want to be well and happy, then all I have to do is to undertake what I would call a subjective exchange of myself for the other, putting myself in the position of the other, and immediately I could understand that each and every other being wants to be well and happy.